everyone. Welcome to another edition of Spartan Center here on LCAT. I'm Colin Casey, joined by Matt Rotalakis and Patrick Varhue. We begin this week's show on a solemn note, as earlier this past Sunday, we lost a legend golfer as well as an up-and-coming starting pitcher. We'll start with Jose Fernandez, 24 years old, defected from Cuba. Again, just 24 years old when he was killed in a boating accident early Sunday morning. He was already, I believe, a two-time All-Star and definitely could be contending for Cy Youngs for years to come. Matt, what was your reaction when you heard the news?
It was just terrible. I mean, this is something that you just can't even imagine happening. I mean, it still hasn't even set in for me yet. I think of Jose Fernandez, I don't even think of him being dead. He feels alive to me still. It's crazy. It's so terrible.
Yeah, Pat, you got to agree with that.
Yeah, it's definitely shocking news.
Yeah, and then also we lost 87 years old golfing legend Arnold Palmer. Palmer, I believe he won 8 or 9 majors in his career, rival with Jack Nicklaus. Also, he went beyond golf. He was also a successful businessman as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really, I don't think it's felt quite as deeply as the Fernandez death because he is 87. You know, he accomplished pretty much everything you could in the world of athletics and even business. But it's still obviously very tragic and a big loss for the game of golf. Definitely
a rough weekend for the sports world. Now on to some more positive news. The Boston Red Sox last night clinching the AL East, the first division victory since 2013, and they did it in a very weird way. Red Sox leading 3-0 going into the bottom half of the ninth inning, and then all of a sudden, Craig Kimbrell walks 4 straight guys. He gets pulled. Joe Kelly gets 2 quick outs and then follows that up by giving up a walk-off grand slam to Mark Teixeira. But I don't think a lot of Red Sox fans care too much about that loss, considering what they ended up winning when the Orioles took down the Blue Jays 2-1.
I mean, it's definitely the weirdest division clinch I've ever seen, but as a Red Sox fan, I don't really care that they lost on a walk-off grand slam in Yankee Stadium. I mean, won a division. What's the big deal?
Yeah, exactly. And Pat, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's actually kind of funny. They lost the game, and then they had to celebrate. John Farrell kind of lead that. It was great. I don't know. I liked it.
Yeah, and we now look towards with the Red Sox being in the postseason, they are clinched a division or a chance to play in the ALDS. Who they will play has not been determined yet, but the Red Sox looking very good up to the past couple of games which they've dropped, but they won 11 straight before that. How do you guys feel about the Red Sox going into the postseason?
I feel good. I feel confident. I mean, the only real threat I see in the AL is the Texas Rangers now that the Indians have lost Salazar and, Carrasco. So I think, and even the Rangers, I think, are a very beatable team for the Sox, and they look good on all sides of the ball.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. And plus the 2 wild card contenders right now, the Orioles and the Blue Jays, have both really faltered down the stretch here in September. Pat, your thoughts on the Red Sox?
Yeah, I really think heading into the postseason, the scariest teams are in the NL to me. I don't think the AL, I think the Rangers are the only team that really poses a threat. I think they can easily take down the Orioles and the Blue Jays like they have in the division. And the Indians have suffered some injuries, some major injuries to their rotation, while the Red Sox rotation's gotten much better throughout the season. So I think the Sox are in pretty good shape.
One more question here. Yes or no, do the Red Sox make the World Series? Yes or no, and why?
I say yes because, like I said, the only threat I perceive is the Rangers, and I think the Red Sox are just too hot right now. They got too many things going for them. The lineup is too deep, and they have great starting pitching and bullpen depth.
Yes, I agree they make the World Series, but I don't think they win the World Series. I think the Cubs, the Giants, both better teams than the Red Sox.
I think the one case you could make against the Cubs is the fact that they haven't won one in over 100 years, and they've certainly had their fair share of bad luck over that time period. We now shift on to football. Looking back at last week, me being a Giants fan, Pat being a Redskins fan, it was a rivalry game here in Week 3. Redskins came out on top by winning 29-27. The Redskins played, I would say they played solid, Pat. Best game played of the season, easily.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins actually looked like a quarterback, unlike he has in the first 2 weeks of the season. Their defense was great. I think if you're a Redskins fan, you have to be happy.
All right, now my point of view. As a Giants fan, I was really disgusted with the way the Giants played in that game. Things looked great in the first half. You know, Eli was throwing the ball well. Eli Manning throwing the ball very well to some of his receivers. He had that touchdown pass to Sterling Shepard. Odell Beckham Jr., for the most part in the First half was pretty quiet. I think Norman did a solid job of shutting him down. Second half, Odell started getting open, ended up finishing with, I think, 122 yards. So I think it's safe to say that Odell might have gotten the best of Norman in that game, but in the end, Norman was the one who came out with a win. But how about Eli Manning making two absolutely terrible throws? The first one, I'll give credit to, I think it was a safety on that play that made a beautiful one-handed interception, but the decision itself was just terrible. And then, of course, on the final drive, Giants down 2 with a chance to win the game, and he just throws it away right at the beginning of the drive. So a really tough loss for the Giants, and you can also add all those penalties that they took in that game. And I just think that it's going to be tough to bounce back from a loss like that. Next game we talk about, we'll stay in the NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles blowing out the Pittsburgh Steelers 34-3. Carson Wentz once again looking good. Still hasn't thrown an interception this year. Matt, what do you think about the Eagles so far this year?
Very impressive, obviously. I mean, 3-0 with a rookie quarterback, and he's just playing out of his mind right now. And they just beat the team who I have said repeatedly I think is the second best in the AFC, and they beat them by 30. So I think you got to be pretty high in the Eagles right now, and the Steelers definitely have some work to do.
Pat, your thoughts on Carson Wentz and his ridiculous start to the season?
I think that start right there proves that he's a Rookie of the Year contender and possibly a great quarterback in the future. He has had 3 dominant starts. First 2, okay, maybe it was just good luck. That was a great start against the Steelers, and I think it's going to be very good for the Eagles' future.
I don't think anybody could have predicted that 3 weeks into the 2016 NFL season, Carson Wentz would be in the top 10 in passing yards, or QBR, I think. I don't know if he was in the top 10 in passing yards. Definitely QBR. And Jared Goff not even starting a game yet with the Los Angeles Rams. So it's unbelievable to think that Carson Wentz is finding this early success. The last game we'll talk about from last week, the Vikings beating the Panthers. I don't think anyone saw that one coming either.
I definitely did not, and I think the most miraculous thing is that they're doing this more or less without a run game. I mean, they have Matt Asiata and Jerick McKinnon now that AP is down, but they didn't really combine for much. I think it was only like 60, 70 yards. So Sam Bradford at quarterback, and I mean, Stephon Diggs didn't even have a great game either, so it just shows you how good their defense is to limit such a dynamic offense like Carolina's.
Yeah, the defense playing extremely well, limiting Cam Newton just to 10 points. Pat, your thoughts on the Vikings?
I think their defense could bring them to the postseason the way they're playing right now, especially if they get the running game kind of on track and Sam Bradford really kind of develops throughout the season. I think the Vikings might actually win the NFC North again.
Yeah, this is a team that beat the Green Bay Packers 1 week ago in a very low-scoring game, I believe it was. So it just shows how good their defense is, where you can shut down elite quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers. Now we move to this week, Thursday night football, the game tonight between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Miami Dolphins. Matt, we'll give you the first pick as a Dolphins fan.
No, that's all I have to say. Cincinnati, this should be a big win for them. Miami has just looked terrible first 3 weeks. I mean, last week they almost lost to the Browns and rookie quarterback Cody Kessler. So that should tell you all you need to know.
Pat, your thoughts?
Yeah, Bengals win by a lot.
I'm going with the Dolphins in this game.
You're going to regret that.
I mean, I went with the Patriots last week on Thursday night, and they won. You guys went with
Even
the
that
other.
made more sense than
I understand. But I feel like the Dolphins' defense, granted last week they weren't that great on defense. However, I think, they might be able to take some momentum from that win, even if it wasn't a great win. They might be able to take some momentum in that game. Cincinnati's coming off of a loss, so why not? That's my logic. I'm kind of searching for reasons, but I just feel like they might be able to get it done.
Maybe.
We'll now head to the Sunday games here. For Sunday afternoon, Seahawks will be taking on the Jets.
I'm going with the Jets here. I like their defense. I think it's pretty good. Revis has definitely gone down a little bit, but he's still a solid number 1 corner. And I think that offense is just really, really solid with Fitzpatrick at QB, even though he threw 6 interceptions last week. I think that's obviously not who he is as a quarterback. And Matt Forte stabilizes the ground game along with Bilal Powell. And Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall are just one of the top, probably 5 wide receiver tandems in the league right now.
The problem is last week Fitzpatrick threw 6 interceptions.
That is a problem.
Marshall and Decker are both banged up. And I think the Seahawks defense is still top in the NFL. So I think the the Seahawks are going to be able to get it done. I think they can stop the mediocre quarterbacking from Ryan Fitzpatrick, especially when he doesn't have many targets. And I think the Seahawks offense can just scrape by, especially with the good running game that we saw last week from Christine Michael.
Yeah, you beat me to that. I'm going to go with the Seahawks, and Christy Michael looked really well last week with Thomas Rawls being out. The Jets coming off of just a really gross game from their offense. I'm going to go with the Seahawks because they haven't looked all that great this year, but I feel like they did that last year. They were off to a slow start, and they ended up bouncing back. Let's go with the next game, Carolina versus the Atlanta Falcons.
As good as Matt Ryan has looked thus far, he's been doing it against some pretty weak defenses, and that's just not the case against the Panthers. I think they're going to put pressure on him. I think they're going to be in his face, and I think he's going to really struggle, and I see the Panthers coming away with this one.
Yeah, we'll have more on Matt Ryan in this show. Just wait and see. Pat, go ahead.
This is going to be the game where Matt Ryan finally falls apart like he should, because that is how he is. He's not a good quarterback. We are going to see Carolina's defense destroy Matt Ryan. Cam Newton's going to drive the team back into the victory circle, I don't know. And they are going to get a huge win, 49-0, something huge. Wow, totally wild.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Carolina in this game. Atlanta's been not as bad as people really thought they were going to be so far this year, but you got Cam Newton. Cam Newton's been off to a pretty slow start. His QB rating's pretty low in the low 70s. However, he can really run the ball himself. And if he throws the ball to Greg Olsen like he did against the 49ers 2 weeks ago, then I don't think there's any stopping the Panthers' offense, and then you just throw in their defense as well. We got a game now an international game in London. The Colts will be taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars there.
I'm going to go with the Colts. I really like what I've seen from Andrew Luck so far. I don't really like what I've seen as much from Blake Bortles, and I think this is going to be definitely an offensive-minded game. And I just see Andrew Luck and the Colts outgunning the Jaguars.
I like what I've seen so far from the Jaguars a little. I think they have a lot of potential.
I agree.
I look at the Colts, and I don't see as much potential. I think I see what we're seeing now is what we're going to get the whole season. Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton, that's the offense. Dante Moncrief is pretty good. So I'm going to have to give it to the Colts just because they're at a good point now where the Jaguars are still developing. Maybe by the end of the season, the Jaguars can compete with the Colts, but right now I think it's an easy Colts win.
Yeah, I think there's a category of teams that are looking like they're on the rise. Jaguars fall into that category. I think the Raiders do as well, although both of them off to some pretty poor starts. I'm going to go with the Colts in this game, sort of for the same reason you said, Pat. They're playing like a 500 football team. Who knows? It could be good enough to win this division because the AFC South's been pretty weak over the past couple of seasons. But I'm going with the Colts. Bortles has been decent, pretty inconsistent to start the season. And Andrew Luck, I feel like, is still going to end up having a really good season compared to the one he had last season. Next up, we have the undefeated New England Patriots taking on the Buffalo Bills at Gillette Stadium.
I am not picking against the Patriots anymore. That's it.
Okay. All right. We won the scores last week. Do you even want to go ahead and take a score in this game?
No.
No? All right.
If the Patriots lose this game, I'm just not going to know how to make a prediction anymore because they just creamed the Texans, but they're going to lose to the Bills. That doesn't make sense at all. Patriots should blow them out. Gronk might get some more snaps, some more targets this week. Hopefully I'm right, but you never know. Patriots seem to do some weird stuff.
I'm going with the Patriots as well. Went with them last week. Kind of underestimated them. I said it was going to be 28-14, and they ended up shutting them out. It was 27-0. So I'm going with the Patriots. Buffalo, got a big win last week against the Cardinals, but it's really tough to beat a team led by Bill Belichick. Tennessee at Houston in this game.
I'm going with the Titans. I mean, the Texans just looked horrible last week, and I think probably part of that has to do with just facing the Patriots and Bill Belichick and how great they game plan for everyone. But I don't know. I'm still holding out hope that the Titans will be a good team eventually, and I think Mariota's just hasn't reached his potential yet. And I think he'll take some strides getting there.
I think the Texans can do it. I like Brock Osweiler. I like DeAndre Hopkins, and I like Will Fuller. What I don't like is the fact that J.J. Watt's probably out for the season. Big injury. So their defense, which is great, took a little hit. Their offense is developing, and I just can't say I'm a huge believer in Tennessee's offense or their defense, so I'm going to have to go with the Texans.
Yeah, the Texans essentially lost the best defensive player in the league up there with Von Miller. You can make the debate, I guess, either way. I'd probably
Kuechly.
Yep, Kuechly as well. I'd probably lean towards Watt out of all three of them. But,
Me too.
you know, he's been injury prone over the past season and a half or so. And for that reason, I'm going to go with the Tennessee Titans. I've really liked what I've seen from Marcus Mariota so far. Doesn't have a ton of weapons. Got that rookie wide receiver from UMass.
Tajay Sharp.
Yep, he's been pretty impressive so far. So I'm going to go with go with Tennessee in this game. I don't think it's going to be all that high scoring either, or regardless of how good neither of them have, I want to say, great defenses. I mean, now the Texans did, but with Watt being out, I feel like
That's a huge loss.
Yeah, big time loss. We got the Rams taking on the Cardinals. The Rams winning their last two games. The Cardinals now 1-2 on the season.
It's tough for me to pick the Cardinals, but I just have to. I think that team is just too good to keep playing like this. I mean, I think it was 5 interceptions last week from Carson Palmer. That's just terrible. He's not that bad. Carson Palmer is a good quarterback. He was probably a top 10 quarterback in the league coming into this season, and I think that eventually they're going to turn it around, and I think it's going to be this week.
I think the Cardinals have it, but I would be very worried about Carson Palmer. He might just be getting too old. He's not looked good so far, and he's been a pretty dominant quarterback. I think Bruce Arians a good coach. They have a pretty good defense, and he has some targets. So I think it's all on Carson Palmer's shoulders right now to bring this team to the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Cardinals in this one too. Tough loss to the Bills last week. You know, giving up 33 points to Tyrod Taylor. Not saying Tyrod Taylor's a bad quarterback, but it's really hard to give up 33 points to a guy like him.
Tyrod Taylor's a pretty bad quarterback.
Yeah. But regardless of who they had at quarterback, they just really didn't play well at all. I didn't see anything that resembled the team from a year ago. As for the Rams in this game, where the hell is Jared Goff?
That's what I want to know.
I mean, Case Keenum is like bottom,
He's
5
Case
of the
Keenum.
Yeah, he's like
Case
26th in the league in passing yards.
That's all you need to say.
You got Todd Gurley, who's basically, if you think about it, without a passing game, he's kind of useless because they're going to know that they're going to be running it most of the time, and they'll just have their bigs up front. So Cardinals should win this game. Dallas taking on the San Francisco 49ers.
I'm going Cowboys. Dak Prescott it's a toss-up between Prescott and Wentz for who's been the most effective rookie quarterback so far this year. Neither of them has thrown a pick yet. I think they're 1-2 now for the NFL record for most pass attempts without an interception as a rookie. And I think the Cowboys just look a lot better than the 49ers right now.
I agree. The Cowboys are a lot better. Elliott has done very well rushing the ball, and Prescott's been a great quarterback. They're kind of being led by their rookies, which is pretty interesting. And the 49ers, I don't know. They're just not good. That's the bottom line with them.
I expected the Cowboys to kind of be at this point, like earlier this year, I expected them to be 2-1 probably going through their first couple of games. But I expected them to be doing this with Tony Romo as their quarterback. With Dak Prescott, I didn't even see this coming. He's played extremely well. Played well against the Giants. Didn't have any touchdowns, which probably ended up hurting him because he couldn't capitalize when they got into the red zone. The past 2 games, he's played really well. I think it was the Redskins he beat week 2. Played really well in that game and got some help from Elliott. As for the 49ers, they just lost way too many people a couple of years ago on that defense, and things are just not looking too good for them.
Something worth noting, though, is that Dez Bryant might be hurt. And if he's hurt, that could be pretty bad. I don't know who Prescott's going to throw to. Cole Beasley, Terrence Williams a lot. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, you think about that. Dez Bryant had a catch for like 8 yards in the Giants game. When he wasn't effective, they ended up losing that game. Will the Saints and the Chargers for the next one? Drew Brees taking on his former team.
I originally had the Chargers written down, but I don't know. Now that I look at it again, I think I'm going to go with the Saints. I mean, I see this being a complete offensive shootout. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of defense in this game. And at the end of the day, it's hard to pick against Drew Brees in a one-on-one just shootout, just straight-up offense.
I think this game's going to be pretty wild. I mean, these are 2 quarterbacks that can just sling this thing. I would definitely say I'm going to go with the Saints, though, because I think Drew Brees can sling it better than Phillip Rivers. And I'm going to see a nice, big, high-scoring game with a win for New Orleans.
Yeah, I got to go with the Saints in this one. More weapons for the Saints. You got Willie Snead, you got Brandon Cooks, to name a few, for Drew Brees. For the Chargers, they lost Danny Woodhead. They lost Keenan Allen. So who do they have on offense? They don't really have many people to throw the ball to. I think they also just lost Manti Te'o on defense.
They did, yeah.
To an injury. So I got to go with the Saints in that game. Drew Brees is just too good. He's probably the best quarterback in the league right now.
Wow.
Yeah, he's
That's interesting.
leading the league in passing yards. He's looked very strong throughout the game. I don't know if he's thrown. I think he's maybe thrown one interception through his first 3 games. So we'll get to more about best quarterbacks in the league in just a minute. Now we move on to the Chiefs at the Steelers.
I'm going to take a little bit of a surprise pick, I think, and I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I mean, the Steelers were absolutely anemic last week, to put it lightly. And I like the Chiefs. I think even without Jamal Charles at full strength this week, I think they are a pretty good team. I mean, Alex Smith is a game manager, but he's an effective game manager. And I think they got a lot of big names on defense. And I think the Steelers losing Martavis Bryant hurt them a lot more than people thought it would.
Yeah, Travis Kelce also playing really well last week. Pat, your pick.
I'm still going to go with the Steelers. I like Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown. And I think this is D'Angelo Williams last week to be like...
Le'Veon Bell's in now. He's back.
Well, Le'Veon Bell's back, even better. Steelers going to win the game. Good running game from Le'Veon Bell. And D'Angelo Williams has rushed well, so if Bell gets hurt like he does all the time, Williams can just hop in and run well.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Steelers in this game. I respect Matt's pick, though, because considering how well the Chiefs have been playing some solid football, not nearly as well as they did at the beginning of last year. And then you see the Steelers coming off a pretty dismal loss, losing 34-3 to an Eagles team that wasn't even expected to do well this season. However, you can give the Eagles a lot of credit in that game. But nevertheless, I'm going to go with the Steelers. I think Roethlisberger has been off to a very good start this year. So is Antonio Brown. You got Le'Veon Bell back, and even if Le'Veon Bell's not doing too well, you still have D'Angelo Williams as a safety blanket. And the last game, the Monday night game, the New York Giants will be heading to Minnesota to take on the Vikings.
I am a believer in this Giants team. I think Eli Manning's a solid, underrated quarterback, one of the better in the league. And I think they have probably the most talented trio of receivers in the NFL with OBJ, Sterling Shepard, and Victor Cruz. And I think that the Vikings aren't quite as good as they've played so far.
Pat, you look like you want to disagree with that statement.
Eli Manning's underrated?
Yeah.
All right. That's an interesting opinion.
I'd like to hear your explanation for this.
Eli Manning is just... everyone thinks he's great because his brother's Peyton Manning. Everyone knows the last name Manning.
That's just not
And
true. He's
Eli
got
Manning
2 Super Bowl rings. He beat the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl.
Congratulations, man. He's won the Super Bowl twice. That doesn't mean he's a good
That's not why people think he's a good quarterback. That's why people think he's a good quarterback, not because of his last name.
No, if his last name was... if he was Eli Johnson... that's ironic.
That's kind of funny.
If his last name was, I don't know, Eli Jones... he wouldn't be known as much as people know him because his last name's Manning.
Ben Roethlisberger has 2 rings, and he's just as well known as Eli Manning.
But Ben Roethlisberger's a better quarterback than Eli Manning.
That's arguable. Eli Manning had a great year last year, and he struggled a couple years ago where he had all those interceptions, but I think he's really picked it back up, and I think he's a very good quarterback.
He had a great year last year because no team in the NFC East has a good defense. The Redskins
They didn't before either.
Okay, that doesn't mean he's a good quarterback.
Sure it does.
He's playing against bad defenses, so that makes him a good quarterback?
Not exclusively.
I think there's other quarterbacks who play against good defenses and still succeed, like Ben Roethlisberger, like he did with the Bengals defense, who was pretty good.
If I'm not mistaken here, he put up 35 points against the Carolina Panthers last year, the best defense in the league.
Congratulations, everyone has a good game. Freaking Matt Ryan has good games.
Here we go again with Matt Ryan.
Come on, I mean, I think what does he have to do until you stop discounting how good he is?
I think if Eli Manning could play good defenses without 3 awesome receivers, then I think Eli Manning...
Can you really fault him for having good weapons to throw to?
I'm not saying
he uses them well.
I'm not saying it's his fault. I'm just saying that when you have 3 great receivers, it makes you better.
Well, that's obvious.
Yeah. Therefore, he is not that good. And for the game, I'm going with Minnesota because I like what I've seen them being 3-0. They've had a great defense, and I think they can stop the mediocre quarterback of Eli Manning.
You know what? I said I was picking the Vikings. I'm taking the Giants in this game just because of that. Eli Manning, I think he's good. He's played very poorly against the Vikings throughout his career. This week, I feel like he's throwing for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. Okay?
I can't wait to see if that happens.
Not as bad as Matt Ryan, though.
All right, we're moving on to baseball, back to baseball now. The MLB season is winding down. So we're about to be seeing who's going to be winning the awards for this year. We'll just talk about here the AL because the NL ones aren't really up for debate, but we'll go with the AL awards. First off, AL MVP. Who do you guys got? Pat?
Mookie Betts. I think going to the postseason is something that should be brought into consideration because it's most valuable player. What is the value of a player who can't bring their team to the postseason? So I think Mookie Betts should be the MVP this year, and I think he will win it.
Matt, I'm pretty sure you got a different view on that.
I do. I picked Mike Trout. I mean, Mike Trout is the consensus best player in baseball every year. And yes, he doesn't play for a good team, and technically the award is about bringing value to your team, but there's no doubt that he brings value to his team more than anyone else in the league, and I think that makes it even a little bit more impressive because he's done it with such a bad team. And in the history of the award, it's been mostly on whoever just the best player has been, not so much about who's been the best player on the best team, although that helps.
I'm going to go with Mookie Betts on this, but you bring up a good point with saying how Trout's been on a pretty subpar Angels team this year. I think he also might be leading the league in WAR too. He's up there. And so I'm going to go with Mookie Betts though. Batted leadoff at the beginning of the season for the Red Sox, played extremely well there, and now after moving him to the cleanup spot, he picked up some more RBIs, and he's now a 30 home run hitter, stealing a ton of bases, driving in a ton of runs, leading the league in hits, I believe.
Yes.
And then he really has just shown how if he wasn't with the Red Sox may not be the division winners this season. We'll move on now to Cy Young Award. We could see another Red Sox player winning that award, Pat.
I don't think it's going to be Rick Porcello. I don't think it should be Rick Porcello. I think it should be Zach Britton. I'd like to see a closer win it. I think they're kind of undervalued in awards terminology. I think that they do a lot of important things for their team, and I think closing the games out is important, and I think that's what Zach Britton does very well, and I think he should win the Cy Young Award.
Matt, your thoughts?
There's no question closers are vital for a contending team, but you just don't see relievers win the Cy Young, so I'm going to go with Rick Porcello because I think he's probably been the most consistent pitcher in the American League this year. I mean, from the beginning of the year, he's been really solid. He had a stretch where he was really great from the middle of the season towards pretty much now, which has really put him over the hump, but I just think the 22 wins help. You can debate how meaningful of a stat wins are, but I think he's the most qualified candidate.
Yeah, and to show how rare it is for a closing pitcher to win the Cy Young Award, the last one to win it was Eric Gagne in 2003 with the Dodgers. I think his ERA was like 0.5 that year, something.
Which is pretty much what Britton has.
Yeah, so the last closer to win the Cy Young Award, 2003, Eric Gagne in the National League. I'm going to go with Rick Porcello, though. 22 wins on the season. Has really kept his ERA in a respectable, right around 3. He struck out a fair amount of batters. And then without him, the Red Sox probably wouldn't have an ace for the entire season. He's been the ace from game one. If they thought it was going to be David Price, he didn't really pitch to his standards first month and a half of the season. Now he's picked it up, but the number one in that rotation is Rick Porcello, and I think he is the best starting pitcher in the MLB, so I do think he deserves to win the Cy Young Award.
Best starting pitcher
or in the AL.
Okay. But if there is a year where Britton would have a good shot at winning it, it's this year. I think there's no standout starter in the AL, really. So I think there's an outside shot Britton could get it.
Yeah, it should be really interesting to see who wins that award. I mean, you could even see maybe like an outside shot at Chris Sale, but I really think it's a two-horse race at this point between
Pretty much.
Porcello.
In my mind.
Porcello and Zach Britton. And lastly, we'll talk about the AL Rookie of the Year. I guess I'll start. I'm going to go with Michael Fulmer. I believe he hasn't pitched enough innings to have his count as the ERA leader. Just missed
by
it.
about 3.
Yeah, and I think the weather had something to do with it because
it did
cut his start short. But Fulmer's been very impressive for the Tigers this year. You make the case for Gary Sanchez. However, I think it hurts Sanchez that he didn't start playing until midway through the season. So I'm going to go with Michael Fulmer.
Ditto.
You know what? I'm gonna make a gutsy pick. I'm gonna go with Gary Sanchez. I mean, he's been so good, like unbelievably good. I think he was the fastest hitter to 20 homers in MLB history. I mean, I don't know how you. I don't want to say I don't know how you don't give him the award, but it's gonna be tough to deny him because I mean Fulmer hasn't even qualified for the ERA lead in the league. So how much has he really played?
Yeah, Gary Sanchez certainly a worthy recipient of that award. We now head to the local sports. East Meadow Spartans football team playing tomorrow night against Northampton. This one will be at the East Meadow High School. Northampton 3-0 this year. I don't think a lot of teams or a lot of Mass Live analysts thought that Northampton was going to do a ton this year. However, they went and blew out Minnechaug in week 1, blew out Long Meadow in week 2, and here they are at 3-0 now. Your expectations for the Spartans this week?
Well, obviously the Spartans struggled with Chaug, and Northampton looks really good this year, so I think it's unfair to expect a win out of the Spartans this week. I think this is definitely a game they will lose, but hopefully I'm wrong.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree too. They gotta get it going. Maybe they can finally face a team not great, but
That's true. They've had a tough schedule.
Yeah, they've thought, oh, this will be the week where we won't play a great team, and Northampton's been great. So.
Yeah, Chaug. That last game against Chaug too didn't help. They were leading 17-6, I believe, and they ended up falling short in that game. Well, that's all the time we have here today. Alongside Matt Rolakis and Patrick Varhue, I'm Colin Casey. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next Thursday here on LCAT.